Hi.
Hi, we're recording.
Okay. We're being recorded?
Yes.
Okay. I won't talk then. Okay, work. What am I trying? Hey, Jonathan.
Hello.
Were you in Buenos Aires? Area?
Yes, I got very ill and I'm still ill. So I'm just I'm here.
Okay. I think that was your tweet I saw. Hope you're getting better.
Yeah, I lost my sense of taste and smell, so I think I have COVID now.
Oh no!
That's not good.
As far as your contributions today, I don't know if you had a plan for anything, but feel free to just give us a whole bunch of chats or comments. Or if it's easier for you to just speak, then that's obviously okay as well. We'll give you the time that you need.
To be honest, with all the traveling and being ill and just trying to get back to some semblance of normality, I haven't really been up to speed on things, so I apologize. I will try and catch up during this meeting.
No worries.
You're good. No worries. Hey, Jörg. Hey, Lucas.
Hey guys, nice to hear you.
Lucas, you went to the Buenos Aires too, right? Or
Yes, yeah, I'm still recovering from the jet lag and the temperature change, but it was amazing.
yeah, I heard it was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
I
Now,
kind
I
of
was sorry.
kind of bummed out that I didn't get to go to the Nairobi one because I actually am a big fan of This Is Africa when they had the dance going on and stuff.
Exactly. I was just seeing the tweets by someone. I can only remember that Darlington just dancing around, and
Yeah.
you guys are crazy. Even when we were finishing in Buenos Aires, like with the main sessions and voting and all, Mercy, the facilitator from their side, was already calling their chief of party on stage. So yeah, great crowd. I think that's one of the reasons I like being in this community.
Yeah, everything's spontaneous.
Yeah.
Which I do have to give props to Lloyd and Mercy. Facilitating that is definitely a hurdle.
Yeah.
And I think the structure could have been a little bit better for more inclusion of voices and stuff, but I think sentiment was there all the way around for the most part, at least for getting a basis.
Hey, all.
I'm interested
Hello.
to see what version 2 of the Constitution will be.
What will that be? Who will produce that?
Well, you'll get this
someone.
one voted on more than likely, and then the community will want to do another rewrite because I know there's some people who aren't happy with some content here and there. And my goodness, the conversation around dictation for sure.
Yeah.
So, hey, Cindy. Hey, Robin.
All right, Pedro, if you're ready, we are at 5 or so-called 6 potentially based on today's decisions. So it's up to you if you want to start on things, and we can keep it lax. But
Sorry, what were you asking? Sorry.
We have 50% if you're ready to start.
He's saying it's quorum.
Voting
we-
power.
we're
Well, not
just-
officially quite yet because we need another elected, but and I'm trying to balance it out with Christian still being here and what's going to happen in the future. I mean, technically he has a voting seat right now, so I'm not kicking him to the curb, but I just want to make sure we got the most effective decision. But we can still work on the charter until we get more in here.
Yeah, why not? Let's jump in, please.
I've
Okay.
already talked enough, so.
Let me give everyone just a quick view here. This is the agenda that we have. So for today, it'll be pretty straightforward. We're going to run through the charter, do everything that we can to get this to its point of finalization. And as we have time, we'll start going over the acceptance criteria document and the contribution letter document. So any questions or comments that you haven't had a chance to put in there, we'll try to address those. And if we can finish any of these documents today, that's super, super helpful. Otherwise, it's going to be all asynchronously and until next week. If we have to meet next week to get this done, we will. Otherwise, what I'd understood from Lucas and Adam is that we do want to try to do a vote asynchronously if we don't have consensus here today. Questions, comments, or concerns? Cool. Okay. So the document that I am sharing currently is the version that we've all been writing in and commenting on. So we can go line by line if you like. We can jump to a specific section. Additionally, I do have what is the GPT rewrite of this, as there was some concerns as far as context for first person versus third person grammar, if you will. So I'm facilitating. Y'all please just direct me where we need to go.
Has everybody checked the new version already? I quickly skimmed through it just now before the meeting, but probably not everyone.
Being away and being ill has presented, unfortunately. Sorry.
Yeah, I've already talked everyone's ear off on it, so I'm good with it.
Check it. I think it's in a really good shape to push forward.
Yeah, I also agree. It reads smoothly. I like it.
The current version that we're looking at, or the GPT version?
The current.
Okay. So does anybody have any issues with the statement in green in the third paragraph here? The OSC is responsible for handling dispute resolution that may be required between projects, technical, or business teams. I guess I can take out "and" from that. Or I can put it back if it reads better.
It's an essential activity, essential responsibility from the open source committee.
One more time.
I was saying it's an essential responsibility of the open source committee, in my opinion.
Yes.
100%.
But basically, we're defining will be the dispute resolution between people producing and contributing to the open source repos, or on other apps as well on Cardano.
I think when it comes to that question that the committee answers, like how do we develop? So in that regards, I think that's where the OSC handles dispute. If it's a security issue, that's technical steering in the Security Council, which we may be consulted on.
Okay, I got it. Thanks.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, essentially the OSC in this case is acting as the mediator between, let's say, the TSC and the technical working groups, or an external project that's depending upon a core Cardano repository as a dependency, or something that comes out of product committee or Intersect leadership as a decision. The OSC, basically, you guys will have a chance to say yes, it's valid, no, it's not, or here's the way that activity needs to go forth. And in a sense, you get the final word if the other teams haven't been able to come together. Okay. And I went back to and here, although that might be slightly erred on the grammatical side of things. It reads a little bit better so that we don't have just full of punctuation. If anyone thinks we can drop the single quotation there, then we can put that back to a comma, but I will just add this for now. That way you guys can see it in real text.
Yeah, text, I would advocate dropping the quotes around the business, technical, and projects, because I don't think it adds anything there.
There's secret cabals, Adam.
Cabal's inside the cabal?
Yeah.
Cabalception? Okay, cool. Good to know.
Looking better for everyone?
I do love an Oxford comma.
And I thought I was the bad typer text.
Okay, any opinions on the capitals? Do we keep that capitals to specify the importance?
Yeah, well, I have a bias. I capitalize too many things in my writing, but I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, it does also highlight the different categories, in my opinion.
Okay. I will back up here to this first piece. Basically, what we are referring to, you all that sit on the committee, is as individuals in this section. Do you all agree with individuals? There was a discussion on, or I had made a suggestion about professionals, but that was removed.
No.
So leave it alone.
The individuals is good.
Just for me.
So if it directly refers to the members of the committee, it is not clear from this, because right now it says we bring together relevant stakeholders, and it doesn't say specifically that we continue talking about only the committee members, not all the stakeholders we bring together.
So I believe that would be suggested as individuals changing to stakeholders.
Or committee members.
Also an option.
I like community members.
Community members is broader.
No, committee. You just, yeah. It would be committee.
Okay.
Oh, I was on the wrong sentence. Never mind.
Any issues with this? I already saw some thumbs up. Okay. One last question on this whole first section here. Does anybody have any questions in what is the open source committee? I'm going to go back to the roots and take silence as golden. So, all right. Real quickly before I keep going down the document here, I was speaking with Lucas and Adam, and we had received a notification that Diane is no longer wanting to stay on the committee. Now, Diane is part of Baturja, who holds an enterprise membership here with Intersect. In the initial buildings of the committees, there was an agreement that if an enterprise member were to need to step down from a committee, they can essentially appoint their replacement. In this case, that would be Jörg. Now, Jörg had also applied to be on the committee in his own right, and if you all agree to appoint Jörg in Diane's place, that means that you do not function with an empty seat. And obviously, we've gotten some feedback here today, but Jörg has been all over some of our other documents here as well. So I was asked by Lucas and Adam to get the sentiment of the full committee as to whether or not you accept this swap, this transition.
And if you like, I can step out of the meeting while you discuss.
From my side, I have no problem with that. I agree. Welcome.
I also don't have any concerns. If you would like to share why the replacement, I'm happy to listen, but also not necessary, but interested for sure.
Basically, Diane was given an opportunity to sit on a higher level committee, and that also provides an additional benefit back to Intersect. But more specifically, accepting that position for her made the time commitment to attend both committees a little bit more difficult. So,
yeah. And just to clarify, I will be working with her strategically through the Linux Foundation towards Cardano, just not in this capacity. If that makes sense. And Jörg is the next direct fill-in I'd recommend because he's an expert in Web 2 open source that he can bring knowledge sharing.
The only comment I'll make is if this was a pre-arranged arrangement for this kind of thing happening, then I have no objections because it was already part of the agreement.
So
the only thing I would say to that is we are the leaders in this here. So the first ones to make it happen, but being the most mature, I think we can do it with the least amount of questioning. So I will take the sentiment here. I'd already got an agreement from Lucas and Adam previously, but yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in, Johnny, real quick and mention that it was already part of my feedback to Tex during our kind of orchestration meeting that this, if we're going to have a situation like this arise in the future, that somebody is representing an enterprise seat, that needs to be very clear in their campaign so that it's more explicit that this could happen rather than happen willy-nilly and as defined on the fly. So see and hear your concern, but I think we should allow this one so we don't end up having an empty seat in a special runoff election. And instead just make sure we're much more explicit about enterprise individuals representing enterprise seats going forward.
Yeah, might need some documentation too that you can't just swap out every single call too, only on circumstances.
Yeah, good call, Christian, as well. Yeah, you can't just hot swap seats back and forth and have a new person showing up every meeting so that the committee can't work reliably with the same individual. So just setting policy, uncharted territory for everybody. So it's a thumbs up in my book.
Lucas, if we can just get any final thoughts from you, or at least your verbal acceptance of this change to finalize.
Yeah, as we spoke, yeah, and especially because everyone is on board, it makes sense, and I'm totally for it.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for bearing with the sidebar, and Jörg, welcome, and we'll keep moving.
Thank you for welcoming me into the committee.
All right, we are on to the vision section here, or sorry, mission section. So there's a question here on the basically first person versus third person. Now, we talked just briefly about this because I made it through a couple of sections with Adam and Lucas. And what we identified here is that there was a slight textual edit in the Intersect open source committee. So just making sure that was defined at the beginning. That leads, when we come to say our mission, we've already defined who we are at the very beginning. So there's not as much, there's not really a lack of context at that point. If that is still of concern, what I can mention is actually the GPT version left our mission in there. It did not find any grammatical errors. So open for debate if necessary, or we can just clear that comment.
I think you can clear it. I was reading through the AI vision, and I thought it was quite smooth to read. So I think it's fine.
Okay. Just in the event that there's anything different, let me post that version here. I think it's all the same. I think the one difference here is through as opposed to with.
Through does read better.
Okay. And then also in the next one, policies and support for its success, policies and support to ensure its success.
Right. Policies, comma, and support. That could be removed probably.
That's the Oxford comma coming back.
Well, on the lower paragraph, it reads policies, comma, and support.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. So here would be the difference, right? The GPT from a grammatical perspective was asking that we take this statement in place of the last sentence here. The changes is adding the appropriate comma and then saying support to ensure its success as opposed to for its success. And then ensuring it's, it takes remains adaptable and accessible and just adds adaptability and accessibility as individual terms. So it's just saying that this is wordy, that what we currently have.
Are we providing support through the tools and policies, or support the third leg we're standing on? Because another way this could read is we are committed to providing tools and policies in support of successful, et cetera, et cetera.
The ideals, as I understand it, is for us to drive success. So,
Yeah, I mean, if we get funding, because we do have support services that may also fund tooling for developers as the OSC sees fit, and then obviously we do best development practices.
I added a version of the sentence where we remove support.
I'm having trouble understanding the party, but maybe I'm just not reading it as a whole thing here.
We're committed to providing
Well, the
tools.
distinction that is in my head is when we say we support, that means we are down in the trenches helping.
Maybe guidance instead of support as a vocabulary change. Because this serves as a subject matter expert arena for projects to come to.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think you got majority on that text.
Okay. So, anybody have any issues with this being removed then as the final clarification? Here it goes. Okay. The vision section here, the open source committee envisions a future where the Cardano open source project, I believe this is the first time we're identifying it in this way, and I know there's some questions on this term still, is strongly led by a thriving community, and its open development is not dominated by any single entity. So this is a recent change or development, right? In certain terms, you could say that it's still dominated, where IO still has 50% of the contributions, but there's quite a bit of activity that says they are actively working through the decentralization aspects of it. So I know that wasn't necessarily a key point of what's here, but are there any issues with us making that statement as a part of the vision?
No, because it envisions a future, right? It's not saying it's a current reality.
Yeah, I think it's quite an important one.
It's on me to make it happen. So I like it.
Go ahead.
Can we formulate it in a positive way where we say we want the development to be supported and driven by?
I think
Many-
GPT did that for us here a little bit. Sorry, I know I made it smaller. The phrasing here is free from dominance.
I think that's better.
Yeah.
Okay. And then currently it says we want to see Cardano evolve as a mature open source project driven by a strong and diverse community versus we aspire. And then we have recognized as opposed to is known for. And I think there was some question, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong on the term recognized. So maybe this is something we need to change to get, or actually, no, we're still looking at vision. So we've got some flexibility here.
I'm impartial. I don't need the improvements that ChatGPT suggests. I think what we had was good.
Okay. And that would be aside from this free from dominance piece, right?
Yes.
Uh-oh. My bad.
Yeah, I'm indifferent on the other two.
You could say a thriving and diverse community if you wanted to essentially drive home the fact that hopefully that community is not all part of this under the same umbrella. Because a single entity that employs 600 people could be said to have a community and culture of their own.
Any questions on this section still not addressed?
Now that we've introduced thriving and diverse community in the first paragraph, the strong and diverse community in the second, is that redundant or is that referring to something else?
Nope, it's redundant.
We just want to make sure you caught it the first time.
Cool.
Do we then take out diverse because it's in the second paragraph there? Or?
Well, no, we should just not repeat ourselves. Like, why do we have this one single sentence paragraph at the front that then is instantly repeated by the next sentence that comes after it in a second paragraph?
Maybe take it out of the second and have
evolving as a mature open source project driven by a community is the exact same thing as a future where this open source project is led by a thriving and diverse community.
So is that what I'm understanding? Just take that out altogether.
Yep. Keep it simple, keep it short. Reduce the fluff.
Okay. Leave this as two separate or bring this all together?
Separation is always better for readability in my mind.
Yeah.
Big blocks of text are difficult to get through sometimes.
Yeah, short, bite-sized blocks of text are always better.
Wonderful. All right, OSC responsibilities. Looks like this went over rather well, with the exception of the budget bullet point here.
Yeah, I thought it could maybe clarify a bit more what this is, but it seems a bit circular if you see what I mean. Like we manage our own money. Is that what it says?
Essentially, you put forward the request, you get the allocation that the community votes for, and then you manage it and give a basically a report back to how it was utilized. That's what all the committees are going to have to do.
In a similar way, where we see the conduct annual performance reviews for the open source office personnel, it works in that same fashion, right? At the end of the day, you all choose what you're going to work on, and we take direction based on what it is that you all want to see done. And when you would give us a review, you would say, yes, they did it. No, they didn't, but I liked or I didn't like this. So it's the same thing, but just with money. You know, but you're giving a self grade instead of giving a review for somebody else may be the only difference there. But somebody else is going to come in and audit that anyway. So you get a chance to look over the entire process. But I'm open to, I'm open. I think we'd be open to a slight change in terminology if it's of benefit. So.
Well, and another point that we don't really have on here is y'all also have to approve our roadmap for what we want to do in 2025. So me and Tex outline goals we want to do. Y'all make sure it's something you want us to execute on or add, remove, etc. So.
Wouldn't you think that's part of essentially conducting your performance review? You know, I could see it as a separate job item, but also, you know, essentially making sure you're doing your job is did the work align with the roadmap that you shared at the beginning of the year, sort of thing.
It's just which subsection do you want to make the title, right? So
yeah, no, I hear you.
Well, one is setting the work and the other is reviewing the work, right? So we'd have to approve the roadmap itself for the work that then will then be reviewed at the end. So they're separate parts of the timeline.
yeah, so you do have the OSC strategy overall, how we're doing all the projects. Then you have how the open source office itself and the work that we're trying to prioritize comes to y'all for review. And then we get reviewed on our performance to all of those and or other subject matter that y'all want to include.
Should they appear in the order of time then? That is to say, have the review underneath. Yeah, you've just done that.
I think we introduced like a quarterly review, but elections disturbed that process.
Yeah, but I mean, in the responsibilities list, have them in order of like when they'll come up, so that they're not seemingly, you know, back to front. You know, we have the timeline roadmap that needs to be approved first in the list, and then the review process underneath that, so that it shows it comes after.
Yeah, even the first one might be the budget allocation stuff because that's the number one thing going on right now. Then yeah, I like that idea.
It's so that people get a nice little picture in their head of how the order of play.
Is there anything missing from the list?
I plead the fifth.
Is the annual roadmap a thing that should be capitalized, or should this be lowercase?
I don't even think it would be called a roadmap per se. That we haven't necessarily built that out.
Well, it depends on if we require Christian to print it and have a framed copy on the wall behind him or not.
I can. Well, just for y'all's reference, this is the current draft.
Well, I actually take that back. I stand entirely corrected here because we do have a slide deck called roadmap. So
That's what I called it.
yeah, I mean, but here's essentially the bulk of what you're approving. And then we have slides that go into detail as needed, but
And I try to make the roadmap build off y'all's strategy anyway. So usually they're aligned.
I can jump right back to the charter if y'all wanted just a few minutes to look at this and then just tick this off. Then we can remove the draft and the review pieces here and call it finalized.
I think we stick with the charter and do the roadmap async, maybe, just for time's sake. Because the roadmap, we may change things coming into January.
Okay. If you can just make sure to drop that link in the Slack channel. I don't know if you put it in the Meet or Slack, but
I'll put it in the Slack channel.
okay. Back to business. At first light, does anybody have any issues if I just clear all of Jörg's comments and changes here so we can read it? I'll fix this in a second, but I just want to move this back so we can focus on just that one section. Anybody have issues? Okay. So core values, we have basically two different formatting. So we changed this just the other day when I was with Adam and Lucas. They have suggested this new one here. So we have the term, and then we have the definition of the term on the next line italicized. The previous was the term in parentheses, and then the text following. I actually like the new one, but it's not my decision. I don't have a vote, so y'all let me know.
I'm a fan of subheadings, especially with italicization. It really does differentiate and show that it's directly linked to the next section you're working on. I like this change. Less messy than brackets.
Agreed. Okay, so there are only 4 that are listed here just for clarity. So we have open, sustainable, quality, and citizenship. The last 2 don't really have comments, so let me just jump through these real quick. We'll kind of go bottom to top on this one. Anybody have questions on citizenship? Yeah, Cindy?
Not on citizenship, but something on decentralization. Like, wonder which committee or jurisdiction would it be? Like, to, in a way, monitor whether or not Cardano is becoming, say, more centralized, either through different entities involvement or, say, stake pools and others. Would it be under WSC or would it be something else? Because it's from the responsibilities perspective. It's monitoring of decentralization index or something under ours as well. Any thoughts on that? It would be going back to the responsibilities again. maybe Christian or Tex, if you know any other committees that has that responsibility to, in a way, monitor.
I don't think there is, unless it's like a periphery thing of like civics or something.
Well, we know the Edinburgh Decentralization Index exists, but is that under anybody's purview in Intersect?
No,
It's a wholly different thing, right?
yeah, it's Edinburgh University runs that as an academic project.
Yeah.
I mean,
And wouldn't it be better for it to be a wholly independent thing? Or, well, I mean, funded, I'm sure, but like, technically independent thing.
yeah, the closest that we have of it is like the footprint analysis we did using the Bitergia metric tool, because it just shows that more people are contributing all as a percentage value. But if we want to do that, we could get actually more holistic metrics tied to certain projects if we want. It's not hard to do. We
I
just
know
follow what the GitHub data says.
I know the EDI thing itself has open source. You can contribute different ways of analyzing the data that's available. So, like, there could be some borrowing or forking or some inspiration taken from.
Jörg?
I want to comment on the citizenship text. So once that conversation is done,
Yeah, one last thing. This thought is coming in from the point of view that we want to have, say, less dominance of a single entity in the development. So more decentralization, monitoring of that. Like, could there even be a metric or something? But at least having that in the front of us.
So I guess I'm sorry, I'm trying to pick up throughout here, but I'm thinking that would have to be maybe an adaptation to the overall strategy. But right now, that's being handled, like the only oversight that we have of that is through the use of the Bitergia dashboard.
And that's only from the GitHub point of view. It's not even main chain stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can speak to the Bitergia dashboard. When the question is that we don't want the development to be dominated by a single entity, we can calculate what we call the elephant factor, like the elephant in the room, where we keep track of where employees are employed at. And so even if there are lots, what Adam was saying earlier, even if there are lots of developers, if they're all employed by the same company, then that's the elephant in the room. And so we can have that elephant factor and track that. Is that the kind of checkpoint, Sandeep, that you're looking for?
Yeah, that's kind of similar. At least that should be every quarter or so. If we monitor that, we should be seeing that number as well. And as a part of OSC responsibilities, maybe monitoring that could also be listed as a responsibility. So that's not missed. Unless it is already covered in some other points.
You could do that, and then if it's a responsibility, I would recommend it's more of like a reporting cadence, maybe twice a year, something like that. Just a little OSC report that goes over the decentralization factor.
Another point, if we go back to the responsibilities, Sandeep, we have in here that we evaluate the output of working groups and the open source office. Maybe as part of the evaluation, we look at the impact that the working groups and the OSO have on such things as the elephant factor, the diversity of the community, etc.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, we
I
could
think that
do
makes sense, right? Because the vision is exactly that. We want a diverse community that is not led by or dominated by one single entity, and so we need to review this point and evaluate, and then have a report on that.
Yeah, and if I'm not doing the job correctly, I need to explain why.
Exactly.
Don't worry, I got a couple scapegoats.
Can we move on to talk about the citizenship part?
Yeah, sounds good. Extrovert, great.
As I was reading this, I was wondering, be a good open source citizen. This is the value of our committee, that we want to be good open source citizens ourselves. But then we talk about the Cardano open source project. And so maybe that's what I'm proposing. We foster good open source citizens. And then in that first sentence, we want the project to be a revolutionary model. I think rather it's adopting a model, because the project itself is not about being a model. It's about creating the mainnet and the useful blockchain, etc.
That's fair.
Agreed.
Okay. Any issues on citizenship? Okay. Quality. Any concerns on quality?
I think quality is straightforward, in my opinion.
All right. Pardon the out of order. Again, we're kind of just in this right now, but I'm going to go straight to open at the top, and then we'll go on to sustainable because it's got a few pieces there. So any concerns on open? Okay. Sustainable. This one has come a long way, and it does look arguably weak compared to these other core values. So go ahead.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm not sure that I've heard anybody bring it up during the discussion today, but one thing that I was really focused on during Tex and Lucas's meeting that we had the other day was these should be cast in a very positive light. We keep adding these like doom and gloom. Uh-oh, what if this happens? Caveats to all of these like kind of core values, right? So even going back to the open real quick, this status can be compromised if the project loses these things. Like, why would we put that out there into the universe, right? We are not going to allow those things to be lost. That is what our value is. So for me, it may look weak, but that's only because there was like a paragraph and a half under sustainable that talked about all the bad shit that could happen rather than all the good things that we were going to encourage to happen.
I think it's a good point. We shouldn't have a pessimist party.
Oh,
Not that it's bad all the time.
everybody willing to accept Jörg's edits in the open category?
We protect the open, canonical, and trusted standing of the COSP within the community.
Very nice. Sandeep.
Sandeep.
Maybe we stand to protect instead of we protect, because yeah, our intention would be from the committee member, but can we actually do it given external factors? So I would go for we stand to protect.
In my mind, that's adding extra words, but I may not be the expert there.
Or work to protect.
I like keeping it short. We protect. It's a very strong message, and watering that down. Yes, there are many factors that we cannot control. We're talking here about our values. Our value is to protect open, canonical, and trusted standing.
Yeah, I agree with Jörg on that, because I think the committee is accountable. The responsible party would be more on the open source office to make sure that it's kind of happening.
Well, and just to be clear, sometimes the guy standing in front of the army closing the gap dies in the process, right? But or fails and doesn't do it. But so I can see what Sandeep is saying. Kind of softens the language to say, hey, we're going to do our best. Whereas I also see Jörg's that no, we are going to do this. We may fail, but that is what we are going to do, right? There's no backing down from that line that we protect the open, canonical, and trusted standing of this Cardano open source project within the community.
This is still a bit coming from a defensive perspective, no? Can't we go more into the perspective of we encourage, we foster,
We enable.
Yep.
Yeah, well, we've used foster a couple times, so maybe encourage, though. We encourage the open, canonical, and trusted standing of the COSP within the community.
What about expect, Adam? What about expect?
Well, I expect you to never say the words reasonable or from time to time anywhere in this document.
We think.
Okay, we're running short on time here, but I don't want that to influence our opinion. But are we good here with the last edit on open being encouraged? Wonderful. Sustainable. Lucas, go ahead.
Sorry, guys. One thing, I was looking at the canonical, and obviously we're focusing on the Haskell repos and all the Cardano node in Haskell and everything, but we also aim to be an open source committee and office and everything for node diversity, or how do we see that kind of other initiatives developing alternative versions of nodes in other languages. So I was just, I'm not disputing the word canonical. I'm just saying, we want to be canonical in the Haskell front, or do we acknowledge and also foster the open source in the Golang, for example, front? Any thoughts on this? Maybe Christian?
I know we're primarily responsible for everything under the Intersect GitHub, but with the incubation, that's going to open the variety of projects that come in our wheelhouse that we directly have to manage. But I think we also need to foster the other projects that are outside our wheelhouse for the open source citizenship part, right? And Cardano in general.
Exactly.
So I'm good with another synonymous word that changes it, maybe.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise this and have your feedback because I don't know, eventually we may be just being too direct in terms of saying we are the node version, and that by being canonical, and other ones are just not the canonical one. So
So my only stipulation there would be is that Adam has provided some great arguments for the use of the term canonical. It's been a buzzword in the committee this year, and so I think we have a general understanding. And I would venture to say that if you've had a chance to kind of review where we are, how we've gotten here, you'd understand that we're open. But I would also add that I have this in the new statement here for sustainable. I was trying to figure this out and basically added in and collaborates with new node variants.
okay.
So if it's
Yeah.
not covered right there, we're covering it in the next section.
It's 2 points. We want to enshrine the legacy that Cardano already has, but we also don't want to be closed to just one node type.
Okay. I'll have a look at the second part and read it all in the light of what you just shared. Thank you for educating me a bit on and that also just restating that we've gone over it and that it's not what it means. Canonical doesn't mean there can be only one type of
Yeah,
node.
there certainly is definitely not ever an only one scenario, right? I mean, because we're also responsible for DB sync, which is just a database layer over the data that's in the ledger. So yeah, I would not read canonical there to say there can be only one of each type of software, but rather this is the processes that hopefully every project participating in Cardano will follow these things. So in this case, canonical is more around the standards and the ledger and things like that than it is about a singular piece of software.
Got it. It's more about the protocol.
To me, it's kind of like a reference design for a graphics card, for example, for NVIDIA. It's not the case that that's the only one that can exist, and there's various things that can be built off it or variations that can happen. It's just that there is this canonical thing that exists as a reference for everyone to use, and then diversity can come off the back of that.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Sandeep?
Yeah, I agree with that, but the point about supporting new organizations and collaborating with the new node variants, would that fit more on the open side than the sustainable side? And that's being more open, no?
Well, it depends on what you mean by open, because like the source code itself is all open for the node as it is. There's nothing closed about that. So depends on what you mean by open.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't personally have supporting new organizations and collaborating with new node variants in there at all. Like that's not part of our sustainability. That would be more of our fostering or adopting new projects that kind of rise in importance and want to come under the Intersect umbrella, I would imagine. Because yeah, we could misread that essentially the OSC budget goes to set up new alternative node versions or something. Like that's really weird to pigeonhole us into that.
I'm open to a whole rewrite here, but I would suggest that we change I kind of like ensure the continued development as opposed to development must continue. So, thoughts?
I was looking through all of them, and we use different formats of the main statement, and sometimes we start talking about the Cardano open source project, sometimes we talk about the OSC. Right now, the core values is a mix of different focuses. It's not a consistent picture that we are painting. So that's not directly to your point. To your point, I like the ensure option better. And then taking a step back, I think this entire section right now can be cleaned up.
Sebastian?
Regarding the two sentences, I also prefer the ensure one. I also believe having node variants in here is just too specific and shouldn't just be about node.
Okay, I'm going to push this to async here because we've got 2 minutes left. Sebastian, did you have a comment there? I know you got overridden.
No, I'm fine. The evolution of the document in that regard, I like it. Thanks.
Okay. Just take the last 2 minutes, and this will mean that the core values is the only section left to go. Just give me a thumbs up if you've read through this and you are okay with everything that is stated here.
And with this, you mean the operating procedures that you're showing on the screen?
Correct.
Basic functions for each role.
Okay, moving on. Issues, concerns.
I'm just concerned I didn't raise my hand before I spoke at this meeting.
Yes, I put there some observation about the code of conduct. Maybe it's better to have some specifics about, okay, what could be a breaches and the potential consequence.
It's my understanding the open source, sorry.
Yep, no, that's it. Thanks.
I was going to say, it's
I
my
think
understanding the OSC has always accepted the Intersect code of conduct, but if that's not the case and we need to write our own, then we can do that.
You can also refer to the punishment thing as the bylaws. If there's a bad actor, there's a question of good standing associated with membership and stuff like that. So it could go to that route, or we could do something more elementary before it gets to that kind of level.
Nothing specific about the open source committee. Just we conduct our behavior based on the Intersect policy. Okay, thanks.
I
Okay.
also have to attend another meeting.
Yeah, I was closing it out here. So we're just gonna have to keep on this here, async any other documents, but let's make sure that we look at those core values, and then if there are any remaining concerns here at the end. Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds great. Speak soon.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you all. Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you.
We might see each other.
Yeah.